can just... Nice job, high forward.
One shot, one kill. Ronnie did.
Now introducing your Butthole Podcast, Scott, the Great Brandino, Gage's Rage, and Star Lamar.
What's up, girl?
I love the butthole.
Who doesn't love the butthole? Welcome to the official Butthole Podcast. I don't remember what episode number this is.
213.
213, episode 213. And we have a very special guest with us tonight, Mr. Phil Mackey from Skor North. Phil, how's it going?
Gentlemen, I'm 10% of the way through my, it looks to be a keg-sized seltzer here. And so...
It's crazy you only have 4 more to drink after that.
I can do it. I'm going to do a keg stand with this seltzer, actually. I'm just gonna grab it by the top there and just kick my legs up on the wall. See what
Impeccable balance from Phil Mackey.
Yes. We are going to be getting into some Vikings draft talk tonight because we've been covering the draft. We did a mock draft last week live, right? It was last week that we did that.
That was last week.
A few things have changed since then, so we'll get into those. But first, let's kick things off with a moment of silence for Jeff Gladney's NFL career.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah, some news came out today.
Pretty brutal.
Got into, was it an altercation at home? I'm not 100% sure. I haven't actually read the article.
Sounds like it was all over the place.
Yeah, there was a moving vehicle involved in it.
Not good. Not good for Jeff Gladney.
Not good for his girlfriend.
Going into his second year, right? And not in Minnesota. I think Zimmer's a pretty big proponent for keeping guys out of trouble during the offseason, and he's going to have a glaring example to show the other guys. Sounds like he's facing some serious jail time, too, if he's convicted.
2 to 10 years? Is that what it was?
Yeah, and everything's super fresh, like last couple hours coming out.
So here's what we know so far. Jeff Gladney turned himself in. He also posted his $10,000 bond. He's facing third degree. What is it? Jump in here, Phil, if you know what it is off the top of your head.
I don't have the article in front of me, but it's definitely third degree assault in it. I think there's a categorization like assault and then like family. It's like, which means I believe just it's a domestic assault situation.
Yes, it is.
And he turned himself in. It happened on Friday. He turned himself in this morning, and here we go.
Yeah, for a guy who kind of turned it on a little bit at the end of last year, looked a little promising. Big loss for the Vikings, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like, in general, like, we were just talking before we flipped the mics on. Like, what just, especially when you're an athlete and, you know, just all humans should just be kind and have some empathy and, like, all right, you're in an argument with your girlfriend. I mean, maybe it is something that she did to make you mad. But, like, I never understand, like, especially when you're in a high-profile spot like that. Like, don't you put a little space between your emotions and what's happening here? Just think big picture and don't treat people like garbage, and certainly don't assault people and women. So I don't know. I'm all about letting all the information come out, and you know, at some point, I'm sure he has a side of the story, but like the initial details look terrible. And the last time the Vikings had any sort of, well, they've had a couple domestic issues. Chris Cook was one of them, the cornerback they drafted a few years ago. But then the Adrian Peterson switch incident. And the league just sort of like the league put him on the shelf for the whole year and kind of took it out of the Vikings' hands. And then I think Peterson came back and played another year, but that whole situation was kind of a disaster. So I don't know. It's not what the Vikings want, but dude, if Jeff Gladney, if that's how he rolls, then I don't know if I need him on the Vikings. Just, you know, despite the fact that it puts him in a really bad spot roster wise. Like, I'm all for second chances too, but I'm not really in the second chance mindset after reading that report today. So we'll see.
Yeah.
You made it. You made the league.
Yeah.
What like percentage of people that want to be in the league make the league? Very, very little. And then you're there for a year and you piss away. You Plaxico Barris yourself in your leg. Just fucking wild to me.
It is.
Yeah. And hey, thankfully they were able to get Patrick Peterson, one of the biggest cornerbacks, out of the free agency market. And
now we got a spot for Richard Sherman. Let's get the old folks home going back there.
Well, it does give Zimmer a good excuse to draft a cornerback in the first round.
He doesn't need an excuse. He'll do it anyway.
Zimmer do what he wants.
How do you feel about Mike Hughes' roster spot now? Do you think that's safe?
So I actually think, I mean, this whole Gladney thing went down on Friday. So everything they've done at the cornerback spot so far has had nothing to do. Like they thought they had Gladney up until Friday, right? And then this happens. I think that they are skeptical about Mike Hughes and the injuries, like the neck injury. He's had a knee and a neck, and I think a lot of the movement that with the Patrick Peterson move, and I think that was with Mike Hughes' huge question mark in mind. Yeah. And so to your point about the draft, I mean, we've spent this whole offseason talking about offensive line, defensive line. On our show, we've actually dreamt a little bit about a third wide receiver if one of those Alabama dudes falls. Be kind of fun. I don't know if the Vikings are ready system-wise on offense to just go all out with 3 wide receivers, but recreating 3 deep would be kind of fun. But you legitimately now for the next month, especially if Jeff Gladney gets cut here at some point, cornerback is a real possibility at 14 now. As of what time did that news come out? 2 hours ago. Cornerback is now back in play in the first round for the Vikings for sure.
And what we've seen with especially mock drafts and what we think is going to happen, there's 4 quarterbacks likely to go in the top 10 there. Possibly 5. We've heard that Mac Jones, well, now he's projected at 3, but at 5 quarterbacks could go in the top 10. And then you have 4 pass catching, between Pitts and the 3 wideouts there that could go too. That's 9 players out of the top 14 picks that could drop Caleb Farley to us, could drop Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn, any of those guys. I would take.
I think was it Todd Father Mock, Todd McShay? I think he came out with like 3.0 or 4.0 late last week. And I want to say the first 8 players in the draft were all either quarterbacks, wide receivers, or tight ends. So either quarterbacks or pass catchers. And then like the 9th pick was the first non-pass catching player. So actually, if the draft plays out that way, the Vikings would be pretty happy because then they'd at least have a bunch of fat guys to choose from at 14 if they want to.
That would be the best in my eyes.
I completely agree.
You dropped one of the top 2 tackles to us. Get a corner later. Take one of those guys. It's been too long. Khalil didn't work out, and they haven't spent the first round. Oh, I guess Bradbury, but
yeah,
whatever.
we kind of
He's a
miss
center.
our linemen in the draft, but it doesn't mean you stop trying. You know, it's definitely a pressing issue, and it does leave a pretty big open hole for a cornerback. But I think they can scout some guys and get some guys deeper in the draft, like they probably were planning to do anyway.
Random question for you guys here, and I'm going to bring my own sound effects since I'm sitting here in the home studio and I've got my button bar queued up. So since we're talking draft here,
I want a mock.
All right, I'm bringing sound effects to the Butthole podcast here.
Hell yeah!
So we did a Draft Network simulation today. That's right, a Draft Network simulation.
Football.
For all you football nerds out there. And the way it played out today, you can just like pick which team you want to draft as, and then the draft plays out, and then you get to like see how it happens, and you get to make a pick.
Is that the Draft Network?
TheDraftNetwork.com.
That's what we use too. It's great.
Yeah. Yep. And I am not a paid endorser. I just think it's an awesome website.
Yes, we're not either.
Did you guys pony up the $29.99 annual for the premium where you can make trades? Because I totally did that this morning.
Absolutely.
Like, you damn right I want to make trades. Here's $30. Take it from me.
Some very unrealistic trades, but trades nonetheless. You brought up the 3 pass catchers earlier. Who out of that group do you think could fall to 14? Smith?
Probably Smith, because now people are questioning his height and injury and stuff,
His entire career they have.
Yeah, they're questioning if he even exists. Was it all just a mirage? I don't know.
Slim Reaper.
Oh my God, I love that. The Slim Reaper.
I think that's Kevin Durant's nickname, isn't it? The Slim Reaper. Not sure.
I don't know, but I like.
But the draft this morning when we played this out on Purple Daily, and 14 came along for the Vikings. 2 funny things about it. Number 1, trade offer came in, and some team offered they offered like a 7th round pick and I think it was just a 7th round pick to move back. It might have been the Patriots. I think it was the Patriots, because the Patriots are right behind the Vikings, and they offered a 7th round pick to swap the 15 and the 14. And we were like, oh, that's ridiculous. But then we were like, Rick Spielman loves 7th round picks. He probably does. Right.
You would trade that 7th round for 2 7th rounds next. Give me all the 2nd rounders.
But then the second funny thing is Justin Fields was available at 14, And so we've been sitting there, ever since Kirk Cousins went bonkers in the second half. And like, I know I'm not the biggest Kirk Cousins guy. I think he's good, not great, and just kind of he makes it so you're not going to be a train wreck, but he also sort of guarantees with his salary that you can't win a Super Bowl. So it's like, I don't know. Thanks for getting us to the playoffs, but so I've always been radar up for a quarterback, but I feel like we've all put that to bed over the last few months. Like, is anyone talking about the Vikings drafting a quarterback in the first round anymore? No, not since the bye week, basically. But if the draft plays out like that, and I could see with now there's all these work ethic things now that are coming out about Justin Fields, which is totally teams that want to draft him leaking it so that he falls. If Justin Fields is sitting there at 14, do you take him?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go.
Yes, you do. As with your take on Kirk, you're the honorary 5th member of the Butthole.
Yes.
Fair enough.
I'm like one of the biggest Justin Fields fans in this draft. I think he is better than Zach Wilson. And if he's there at 14 and they don't take him, I might have to move my allegiance to somewhere else because that would be ridiculous.
New England, man, they'd
Cousins
be running
is
up to the
not
podium.
going to win us a Super Bowl.
I completely agree with you there. We've talked about Cousins quite a bit, and I'm confident he is not going to be the quarterback that wins the Minnesota Vikings their first Super Bowl. So get you your guy that will.
I hope he's watching and proves us wrong, but doubt it.
I wonder what there would be a lot of fans that would be very upset, I think, because I think the mindset is you got to go all in for this year's team. This is, you've loaded up on defense now, and so you can't now waste your first round pick on a guy you're going to stash like the Packers did last year. Which is hilarious because the Packers need one more player to maybe win that game.
No,
tough to say.
I've always been a little bit higher on Kirk than the rest of the guys here, but I've had the same mentality that I don't think he's a bad quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He's not. We knew when we picked him up, he wasn't Patrick Mahomes, he wasn't Aaron Rodgers. Hell, he wasn't the same level as Drew Brees and Tom Brady when they were in their prime. Even Brady now, for that aspect, but he plays well enough to get us there. But the Vikings have been kind of in our entire lifetime, and maybe even past that, we've been in the rotation of being good enough to get a middle round draft pick to maybe a low end 20s, but we're not. That doesn't do you any good. If you're not going to win the Super Bowl, a 28th overall pick in the first round isn't going to do you any good.
Right.
What year were all you guys born? So I was born in 85, so I missed all the Super Bowls like way back in the day. My first major Vikings reality check was the 1998 NFC Championship game. That was the first time I ever cried over sports.
Yeah, that was the year that got me into football. Was the 98 season? Randy Moss single-handedly made me a football fan.
Yeah, we were 94, 93 over here, and then Star was
89.
Yeah.
Yep. So we don't have, as far as the Vikings go, we don't have any championship memories at all. The first time that I actually cried was, I remember 98. I remember my dad freaking out and tearing the shades off the windows.
What?
Yeah.
He just walked over to the windows and just tore the blinds down.
Yeah. We were just talking earlier about controlling your anger. He just probably listened to that. And then at least he just
slams a beer, crushes it against his head, and tears the blinds down.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Right.
Monday Night Raw was just on, the other day. It was a rerun, so he was in the mood.
But for me, the first time that I cried was the 2009 championship game.
Oh, man.
So
that was a rough one, too.
And my whole thought process, going back to Fields, is our line is not good. Kirk Cousins is a pocket passer. Do we need to fix 5 positions or fix 1 position?
Ooh.
Get yourself a quarterback that's mobile. Case Keenum played way better with a bad offensive line than Cousins does, is because he can get away from the pass rush. Obviously, that year was an anomaly, and you're not going to reproduce it. But get yourself a little athletic quarterback who can evade a pass rush, and
to where you don't need 5 Pro Bowlers.
Yeah, an awesome offensive line.
And these guys blocked really well for Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's athleticism aside, there were still some pretty good holes for the running game. So they're figuring something out on the ground. This pass protection is it's going to be an issue. And Kirk Cousins isn't the greatest
improviser.
Improviser, clutch decision maker. If it's not the interceptions, which are popping off guys' hands or whatever, he's good for a few fumbles, which never come at good times. So I think you're right on the head there with that quarterback take their star.
Wow.
If we take Fields, what are we going to do with Cousins?
He's locked in for next year, right? After it was 2 weeks ago, his contract for next year is guaranteed.
You're not resigning him.
So his salary for 2022 is $45 million, and his cap hit is $45 million. I'd have to see what his base salary is, but like right now he's the highest paid quarterback for 2022. Him and Matt Ryan are both at like $45 million. If I love how we've just drafted Justin Fields and now we're talking about what to do with Kirk Cousins, but let's keep going down this path. This is great.
Yeah, this is a nice hole we're going down.
I think you would probably then you could trade him with the 1 year left on his deal, and then somebody would like they'd restructure his contract to be like a 2-year contract or something for $60 million, and then you'd smooth it out. But I don't know. There's a big story that came out in The Athletic a couple weeks ago where basically the Wilfs are just scared out of their gourds to go 3-13. Because we can make fun of the franchise all we want for never winning a Super Bowl, but like for the most part, they're never a train wreck. They're never the Jets. They're never the Browns, right? They're always going to give us at least a little bit of hope going into a season. And the Wilfs were super worried apparently this offseason that if you were to trade Kirk Cousins, you'd be downgrading at quarterback. And then what if you whiff on the draft pick, and then all of a sudden now it's a spiral into like 4-12 and in multiple years? I don't know. I think they should give themselves more credit. They went to the freaking playoffs with Christian Ponder, for God's sakes. Like, they can build rosters. They just, they can't win. They haven't won the Super Bowl yet. So,
and if you have a Dalvin Cook on your team and you get bad quarterback play, you can still, especially with a 7-team playoff, you can still compete for that 7th spot. And you add Justin Jefferson on the outside, Adam Thielen. I mean, you could still compete for that 7th spot, even if your quarterback is pretty bad.
And the other highest paid quarterback that you brought up, Matt Ryan. People are talking about them taking a quarterback.
Yeah, Atlanta's big time.
They got
talked about
big money into Matt Ryan, and they're still looking at him. So
I think there was just a report that came out today that the Falcons have been talking about trading out of that. Yeah,
number 4 pick.
The problem right now is it's at the point in the draft season where you don't know what's smoke, what's fire, and what's just made up crap to try and sink someone's draft stock. So you got to kind of sift through it.
It's a little different this year too, without the combine, with players sitting out. Like,
and it's the fastest group of players ever. Everyone this year.
And the tallest group too, where it matters. I think it was Bateman was listed on the Gophers program at 6'2", 215. He measured out at 6 foot 195.
Yeah,
that's pro day. So it's like, that's not really like fleck to embellish, I guess, but whatever.
He was recorded running? Was it a 4.38, something like that?
Bateman was,
sub 4.4. So yeah. I don't know if I don't trust those numbers.
None of them that are coming out right now I trust.
There's too many guys running in the 4.3s for me to think that it's
everyone
legit.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it weird that the guy at the Gopher Pro Day had a Gopher quarter zip, a shaved head, and a tie on? Well, he waited an extra half second to click go on the stopwatch
with an oar strapped to his back.
Yeah, and then he sprinted down the other end of the field. I don't know what that was all about, but yeah, it's crazy.
Pointing.
We're just kidding, Fleck. We do. I love you at least. I'd love to get you on.
I do too. I'm a big Fleck guy for sure.
Should we hit on the Darnold?
Yeah, let's do it.
Big trade of the day. Sam Darnold moves from the Jets to the Carolina Panthers for a 4th round this year, or 6th round this year, and a 2nd and a 4th round next year. I think it's pretty good value.
Extremely.
For both teams. As a Vikings fan, I think I would give that up for Sam Darnold. Not with Kirk Cousins right now. Obviously, the contracts won't work out once you have to re-sign Sam Darnold. But if I was a QB needy team, I'd give up a 2, a 4, and a 6 for the 3rd overall pick 3 years ago.
He's 23 years old, so he's still young. I think Kyle Trask is the same age coming into the draft this year. So I think with the Jets, it was a bad situation. Adam Gase is not a good head coach, and he knows how to kill players. We looked at Devontae Parker after Gase left, and he flourished. Tannehill left. He was good. Kenyon Drake had a good year. The year after, Kalen Ballage stepped up too. I think we're going to see the same thing with the Jets with the new head coach, but it makes sense for the Jets to move on.
Even Robbie Anderson last year, after he left, he had a decent season.
with the Panthers.
Yeah, so it might be all Adam Gase's fault. You might be onto something.
Oh, I don't
Let's-
know
let's
all
ask-
him, but
let's
yeah,
ask
he
this,
definitely plays
though.
a big role.
In this draft class, where would Sam Darnold be on the quarterback prospects? I think he'd be around the 5 range, 4 or 5.
You think so?
I do.
Like,
No.
are you talking like the current version of him or the pre-Jets version of him?
The pre-Jets version.
I think the college version of him would probably be 2.
You do.
Yeah, he was super high. He's supposed to go 1 overall.
Yeah, but that quarterback class wasn't the strongest ever.
It turned out pretty damn good.
No, it did. I know. But
There's 5 first rounders.
like Trevor Lawrence is a transcendent talent. Nobody talked about Darnold as being transcendent.
Transcendent
I remember-
bedhead. He had transcendent bedhead for sure.
That's true. And I really like Darnold. I'm not trying to rain on his parade at all. But to me, I like Justin Fields as a prospect better. He's more mobile. I like Trey Lance better. I think Trey Lance has a chance to be an absolute stud if he goes to the right spot. And I would put Darnold right in about there, like 4.
What do you think? Phil?
It's a great move when you can. I mean, I know that there's a future second round pick, which is not nothing, but like they're kind of giving up nothing to take a flyer on a guy who was once highly touted. I agree, he's not Trevor Lawrence, and I think then you kind of have to debate like, all right, is he Zach Wilson? He probably slots in between 3rd and 5th, just depending on Justin Fields. And I love how Mac Jones, by the way, has gone from like, oh, he's like a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and then all throughout the offseason workouts and stuff, he's literally going to be like a top 5 pick now. And I'm always skeptical when guys shoot up that far, but I mean, if I'm Carolina and I'm out on Teddy Bridgewater as a starter and I can give up a 6th round pick and maybe a future 2nd, and I think I can turn Sam Darnold into the problem there is the contract. Like, it's so valuable to get a guy for 5 years on a rookie contract, and he's already burned 3 of them. So by the time he really settles in and figures out your system, like, you're going to be a year away from paying him potentially $20 to $30 million. And I don't know. I mean, Carolina got really desperate, though, because they were looking at the way that the draft board was going to play out. And they're sitting at 8. And at the beginning of the process, they probably thought, oh, 8, let's be great. We'll get one of these guys. And now, like, 5 guys are going to be off the board before they even pick. So this is them sort of sniffing out, all right, we either would have had to trade up to 2 or 3, or we just have to find a non-draft pick option. It also shows you how much they hate Teddy Bridgewater, right? I mean, they've just been desperate all off season to try and replace Teddy Bridgewater. So I could see the Vikings trading like a 6th round pick and then restructuring his contract for backup purposes and having him wear purple again. I wouldn't rule that out.
That would be like the Rubio back to the Wolves kind of story.
Yeah,
the hometown favorite.
Total waste. It would be bad.
Yeah.
So do you have Zach Wilson penciled in at 2 to the Jets then?
I think so, but I mean, I'm just going off of what smarter mock drafters are saying. But I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Saul's a defensive head coach. And that's why I think with the Vikings taking a quarterback at 14, like, depending on who you get, if you need somebody, like, let's say Trey Lance falls to us, I think he's got great potential. I really like him. We were NDSU alumni ourselves as well. Well, 3 of us went there. But he needs somebody that's going to be able to help him learn, progress, learn the NFL system, get a little bit more experience. And I don't know if we have the right system for him. So I kind of feel that same way with Zach Wilson going to the Jets. I don't know is Saul the right guy that he brought over. Was it Matt LaFleur? Or is it
Matt
Mike?
LaFleur is head coach.
Mike. Be Mike.
It was he brought over his brother. So he brought over Mike. Is Mike the guy that's going to be able to train this quarterback and turn them into the prodigy that they're looking for at 2? Like, I don't know.
Maybe.
But there's probably something to be said, too, for what you were talking about, Phil, where they want to draft a quarterback and have him under team control for 5 years on a rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, if you have a pretty decent year next year, you might not have a top 5 pick. And if you don't have a top 5 pick, it's really hard to get a quarterback.
Yeah. And that's why if Fields falls to 14, I know that it throws you off of your all in for 2021 mindset, but it also could be your best shot in the next 2 or 3 years at having a guy under team control. And that's actually one thing, I feel like I bring it on myself when I tweet anti-Kirk Cousins things and bring these things up on Purple Daily, like totally bring it on myself. I know I'm taking on the Kirk Cousins army of fans, but the biggest thing that I think it's misconstrued is, like, you just nailed it with the rookie scale contract. if you look at the last 20 years of Super Bowl winners, some ridiculous, like 90+% of the teams that win Super Bowls the last 20 years have either a quarterback on a rookie scale contract or Tom Brady or like a Hall of Fame quarterback on a non-rookie contract. And so doesn't mean that that'll be that way forever. I'm sure at some point we're going to see, like, Pat Mahomes might win a Super Bowl making more than 13% of the cap, which is another barrier that we've never seen crossed, right? Like, I'm not saying it'll be like that forever, but if you have a good, not great quarterback making top 5 money in the league, you're basically checkmated from winning a Super Bowl right away. And so when I bring that up and say I would honestly rather have Trey Lance on a 5-year rookie scale contract, get him into like year 2 or year 3 when he's making no money still and he's figured out the NFL, and maybe he's not as good as Kirk Cousins is right now in year 3. But if he makes $30 million less and he's pretty damn good, like Russell Wilson was 7 years ago, and you can use the rest of that money to get a monster offensive line and an extra pass rusher and, whatever, like a third wide receiver or something, I think that's a more realistic Super Bowl path. And so, well, what if he turns into Christian Ponder? I mean, yeah, that would suck. But the Vikings went 10-6 with Christian Ponder, not because he was good, but because he didn't make any money. And they could build out the rest of their team, and they could pay Peterson top money, right? And so, what if they hit on Christian Ponder? That's something no one talks about. Like, if they had hit on the formula with Christian Ponder, they win a Super Bowl. But of course, he was terrible.
Who would have been in that draft though? Dalton or Kaepernick probably were the only other ones available.
Yeah,
at that time. We definitely reached on him. But
imagine Kaepernick on that same Vikings team instead of Christian Ponder. Do they win a Super Bowl? They probably get a lot closer.
Kaepernick did take his team to the Super Bowl, so you never know.
Running that pistol with Adrian Peterson.
That was the year that Cam Newton had that crazy ascent to the number 1 overall between the national championship and draft day, where he was looked at as like a mid guy.
What year did we take Ponder? 2011?
He's right there. He's
2011 or 2012. Yeah.
He was the 4th quarterback taken off the board.
It was it was Gabbert, Locker. It was really,
Locker. Miss that guy.
So Starr nailed it. Your only other options would have been Dalton, Kaepernick.
There's Ryan Mallett was one of them.
Oof.
We definitely drafted off a need in that.
Yeah, and I think the Vikings kind of freaked out too when they saw 3 quarterbacks go, because we traded up for him too, right? Or did we just take him straight up at 12? I thought we traded up, but I could be wrong.
I think we stayed.
I can't remember.
Because I wanted to barely, and he went like the pick after or something like that. Whatever. Now we're just reminiscing on sad times.
But no, like Phil said, like if the Vikings nail that draft pick for a quarterback,
Totally different.
if they would have drafted Kaepernick, even they probably would have been right there for a Super Bowl, just like San Francisco was for those 2-3 years.
So how do you feel just in general then about teams signing quarterback, like the Dak Prescott deal, the Josh Allen impending deal, the Lamar Jackson impending deal? Like, they're going to get these huge contracts. You think it completely takes them out of the picture for championship?
It's so hard. Like, I
those
think
guys are going to be the new big ones.
You feel so much pressure to sign those contracts, and like in the moment, Dallas. Dak Prescott's the best quarterback they've had since Romo left, and the market, it's a supply and demand issue, right? Because that's another argument for the good, not great quarterbacks making all that money. Well, it's supply and demand. There's 32 teams, and there's only like 15 to 20 good quarterbacks, and the rest are either young guys trying to figure it out or backup caliber guys. And so if you're in that 15 to 20 group, whether you're the best or whether you're 15th, like you're going to make a huge percentage of your team's salary cap. I would just like the Dak Prescott one's interesting because I think Dak actually has potential still to be a top 5 or 6 quarterback. I don't think he's done getting better. Kirk, I think, is done getting better. I think if you put a perfect roster around Kirk, he can win a Super Bowl. But I think it's almost impossible to put a perfect roster around Kirk. When we can dissect like the Pro Football Focus stats all we like. Kirk Cousins, when kept clean in the pocket, is legitimately like one of the 3 to 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And so the argument is, well, then keep him clean in the pocket and get a defense that doesn't allow 30 points a game like they had last year. And those things would be great, but there's a salary cap. So you got to get so lucky. You got to have your cornerbacks not get arrested. You got to have your pass rushers not get hurt and have neck surgery. I don't know. It's just I get why teams sign Cousins, and I don't even disagree with the initial decision. When they signed Cousins, it was the right move. They were ready to win a Super Bowl, and he was a better quarterback at the time than Case Keenum. But the extension is the thing that bothered me. You could have just gotten to the last year of that contract and then discussed in the offseason. Instead, you take his contract down to save money for 2020 so you could sign Michael Pierce. Then Michael Pierce opts out because of COVID, and so it was just a total waste. So, anyways.
And since we did come back to it, Cousins' base salary next year will be $35 million with a $10 million bonus.
Okay.
So that's how it gets up to that 45 cap hit.
That's just brutal. So then you leave yourself in a situation where if you don't have some sort of a quarterback behind him that you like, you're going to have to extend him again. And you're going to be right back in the same boat in a year or two.
Like, wouldn't you kind of rather have Ryan Fitzpatrick for $10 million and then spend the rest on a left tackle?
Yeah.
My only thing with that is you don't get yourself stud left tackles in free agency. They don't exist. You get them in the draft, or you give up a lot in the trade for them. But
yeah,
or like Orlando
similar
Brown.
to the quarterbacks.
Yeah,
the good ones stay on the team that drafted them.
You can't find that position in free agency. I think we looked at the PFF graded like top 15, and only one of them was on a team that didn't draft them or trade for them.
Yep, it's a fair point.
That's what's hard about that. We need to hit on a draft pick for the offensive line.
Well, the problem with a contract like Kirk's at quarterback and a player like him is it puts so much pressure on you in the draft. Like, you have to draft ridiculously well. And then on top of that, you need all the luck in the world. And it's the NFL. Everybody knows injuries happen. So it's just a tough spot to be in. For the Vikings, though, I don't know. I'm going to literally dream about Justin Fields being there at 14 now.
So I got a question for you, Phil. We were kind of talking about quarterback salary, and you said Mahomes is something like 13% of their salary. Do you see a world where the NFL does go to I think it was mentioned last time they held out for the new contract, a quarterback having a percentage of the profit share that doesn't count against the cap?
Wow. I love that idea.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
When you got a guy that's making $50 million like Mahomes, I mean, you can't really build a team around that.
Yeah, and by the way, they actually restructured his deal for this year so that he actually his cap hit for this year is like $7 million now. It was going to be like 30 or 40.
Oh, that's insane.
So what does that mean for the future? Because he's making that same money, isn't he?
Yeah. So NFL contracts are so complicated, and there are other people like Ben Gessling from the Star Tribune like studies this stuff every day, and so he knows way more than I do. But if you sign a guy, the bigger the sign, you can take a signing bonus. The reason you see big signing bonuses is because you can then take that signing bonus and spread it equally throughout the remaining years of the contract. So, like, I don't remember what Pat Mahomes' signing bonus was, but you can essentially take that and then you can spread it out so that you can. If you don't want all the money to be up front, or if you want to be more flexible with where you put that money, you can spread it. So I don't know. I can't remember how they converted. I think they might have converted like one of his bonuses into a different kind of bonus this year, so that I think they converted like a roster bonus into a signing bonus so that they could take the signing bonus and move it out into 2021 and beyond, or 22 and beyond. And now they're going to win the Super Bowl.
The cap is fake anyways.
Especially in Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City just has a magic hat they pull money out of, I'm pretty sure.
Well, that and the Rams.
Yeah. But so that money that you were talking about that they spread out, is that what the dead cap is then? When you have like, even though they aren't have any guaranteed money, but they still count against the cap?
So dead cap would just be like the amount of money that you're locked in to pay. So a signing bonus would be part of that. Like you already gave him the money, and so it counts against your cap. And then I'm trying to think of, was it Dalvin Tomlinson or one of the free agents they signed this offseason? It might have been Dalvin Tomlinson. They moved money into a voidable year. This is what's just so confusing about NFL contracts. It was like a 2-year contract, but the second year was a voidable year, which means he's under contract for 1 year, but they put money in the second year so that he'll be gone potentially, and they'll just like eat the money in the second year. It's kind of like the Mets still paying Bobby Bonilla.
Yeah. Bobby Bonilla.
30 years later. They're like, well, we definitely it's the 80s and we definitely want him, or the early 90s, but we can't really afford to pay him all this money right now. So let's just like defer it to the 2000s and someone else can worry about it.
Yeah. No kidding.
Imagine being a Mets, like this new Mets owner that took over, the Steve Cohen or whatever. And you're like, you're going through all the finances. You're about to drop $2 billion on a professional sports organization. And then at the last second, they're like, oh, that's right. Don't forget accounting. You guys still owe Bobby Bonilla like $1 million a year until 2030. Just don't forget. Don't forget.
Hell of a deal for him, though.
No kidding. I wonder if they can do that in the NFL. Extend it past an actual contracted year.
I don't know.
You can definitely do it for the cap. I don't think you can do it for like actually paying the player. And that's the thing about the NFL is players get paid on one schedule and then the cap gets dinged on another schedule, and you can manipulate how the cap gets dinged. So like when people talk about, well, Kirk Cousins should have taken a pay cut so that this, well, he wouldn't actually have had to take a pay cut. They could have restructured his deal so that he still gets paid the same amount of money, but then they push like dead cap money into future seasons. And so I think both parties agree that they didn't want to do that because Kirk probably wants to hit free agency again in 2 years. And the Vikings were like, we don't want to guarantee you more money beyond your age 35 season. So anyways, It's all very confusing.
I think that's like what the Taysom Hill deal was too, isn't it? Then he signed some huge deal, but it's all voidable.
Yeah, it's all fluff. None of it's actually
stuff.
real money. The guaranteed contract was only like 5 or 6 a year.
Yeah.
And it was in pesos. I don't even know.
But that's how the Saints roll.
They're like, when if we pay you in pesos? He's like, wow, okay.
We're kind of close to Mexico, just right across the Gulf.
Yeah.
Down.
He's like, as long as I get to play football, I don't care.
All right, cool, man. All right, see you at practice.
And then you get Okung, who just takes it in Bitcoin. So, I mean, whatever.
But hey, man, that worked out for
What
him.
a
It worked out
solid
really well.
investment. Yeah.
I think he got in at like 23,000 or something. It's up to 60. So he went from being like the top 10 paid at his position to top 30 paid in the NFL over last year for just last year's contract alone. Smart guy.
I would take it in just Culver's chicken tender baskets.
The regular or the buffalo?
The regular with barbecue sauce. Yeah.
There you go.
On
Do you
the
get
side.
the free scoop of custard with it? Is that part of
the free scoop of custard is always clutch, and I'm always when it's Turtle Sunday, special day of the week or the month. I'm in on the Turtle Sunday too.
You got to negotiate these things in there.
Yeah.
Phil. You can't just leave it at tenders.
Just pay me.
You're not going to get barbecue sauce. You're not going to get fries. These are specifics we need in the contract.
I actually saw a thing that showed the map of the United States, and it showed the favorite fast food restaurants for each state. There was one state that had Culver's as their favorite.
Wisconsin.
It was Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It's a Wisconsin company.
Otherwise, like
Makes
Chick-fil-A dominated. Minnesota was Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A dominated
That's
the
bold.
Midwest, out into the West.
Totally.
McDonald's, obviously.
I'm a
too.
Chick-fil-A guy.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A is pretty badass. Very simple menu too, man. Like you don't have to sit there and stare and get confused. It's like, what do you want?
Hey,
What kind of you want? Do you want it to be spicy or not? Just make a decision.
I'm North Metro. If I'm going for chicken, I'm going right over to Cane's instead of
Cane's.
Chick-fil-A.
And talk about a simple menu. You been to Cane's?
Cane's is ridiculous. So good.
One
You,
love.
you want 2, 3,
fingers.
4, or 6?
Or a chicken sandwich made out of chicken fingers.
Those are the options.
Jokes on you. They're all chicken sandwiches.
And they're like, we don't have napkins, but we have this Texas toast that you can just use.
It's the best.
They got solid ice too. Wow, we're on a little tangent.
Well, let's do this. To wrap it up with Phil Mackey, let's just say the Vikings at pick 14. Give us like 2 or 3 guys you think are realistic and make the most sense for the Vikings.
Yeah, I think I should probably hit the sounder again here to make this official.
I want a mock. You're on it.
There you go.
Oh, that's good.
I really think Mike Zimmer wants to take a pass rusher. I still think they're going to sign some sort of like stopgap left tackle or, has Russell Okung signed with anybody yet, or is he still sitting out there in free agency?
As far as I know, he's still around.
Villanueva too.
Yes.
I know my co-host Judd has reported that they've definitely had discussions with Okung, but obviously he wants more money than the Vikings have allocated in the salary cap right now. They could still restructure Harrison. So I actually think they might address offensive line more in free agency somehow or via trade. So I think Kwity Paye is in play for the Vikings edge rusher. This isn't fans might get kind of pissed, like, all right, you fix the defense, that's great. Just stop now and get some offensive linemen. But I could see if one of these tackles, like if Slater, the Northwestern kid, I mean, if Penei Sewell falls into like the early teens somehow because teams get too pass happy with receivers and stuff, I think you're in trade up territory then. Although you don't have a second round pick to trade, so you're low on ammo.
Sevenths.
You got well, you lost one of them because you cheated the salary cap. So I would say, I mean, there's a million names, but like, the one that has been mocked to the Vikings most is Elijah Vera Tucker from USC, the offensive lineman. At least, so we've been doing like twice a week mock draft roundups, and he's been the one that is most commonly sent to the Vikings. But yeah, I don't have a great firm like I think it's going to be this guy because it depends so much on how the first 10 picks play out.
Yeah, and that's when you're at pick 14. Your pick is going to be dictated by the teams in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally for us, though, 4 or 5 quarterbacks would go in the first 10 picks. That just keeps sliding players down the board. So,
yeah, get desperate. And maybe like if Fields is there at 14 and you decide you're not going to take him, maybe you can pick up an extra future first or a second round pick or something, you know?
Need one.
Patriots might get a little desperate. I'll never know.
True.
That's the fun about the draft.
We're excited. We will be live all draft Thursday and Friday for anyone who wants to check us out. Lots of giveaways.
Yep.
Sponsored by Blue Collar Media Group.
Yep, they're going to be giving we'll give away a copy of next year's Madden. We'll be giving away gift cards, tickets to upcoming games, which it's looking like we're going to actually have fans in the stands. We'll be giving away 2 jerseys of your choice if you win one of the 2. So we're going to be giving away a lot of stuff thanks to the Blue Collar Media Group.
Yeah,
So we saw your post this morning about breaking into the sports industry as being, smaller groups trying to make their way up, and kind of resonated with us because obviously it's something that it's a goal of ours as well. Do you mind just talking about that for a minute? Because we have a lot of people that listen that are kind of in the same boat as they're starting out their own podcast, their own group, and they're trying to make their way to do it as a full-time gig, do something they love.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's awesome. I mean, you guys. So I posted. I've been on LinkedIn for like 12 years, but I've never really used it much because I've worked at Hubbard, and I've worked at Hubbard Radio for 11 years as a sports talk host, and then as of the last couple of years, I've also half to 75% of my job is actually behind the scenes helping the 8 Hubbard radio markets across the country and all their radio stations grow digital audiences and try to take a radio ship and turn it and be a little bit more modern and whatnot. So I think about this stuff all the time. It's like in an era where, and I'm not going to say I have all the answers. I certainly have a lot to learn myself. I'm in my mid-30s, which is still really young in this industry, even though I've been in it for like 17 years. But I posted on I bring up LinkedIn because I mostly just ignored it for like 11 or 12 years because I've been happy in my job and I still am. But I realized that a lot of smart people are just using it for like conversations about the industries that you're in, and there's thought leaders and industry leaders and stuff. And so I'm gonna post something that I feel like I get questions on all the time, but it's not really a public discussion. If you're trying to break into today's sports media realm, like you guys are talking about, what are some things that you should focus on? And I think that's the number one question I get, just DMs or emails from people in college or whatever in their 20s. Like, how do I get in? It's a lot different now than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I got an internship at KFAN in 2005 in college, and I just like outworked everyone and then got a weekend show. And then but like that path is kind of gone because you can't just go to school for broadcasting and then get an internship and then get a job anymore. What you guys are doing actually is what the number one piece of advice is that I would give people is just create content. Like get it. There's a book called Outliers that Malcolm Gladwell wrote about 12 years ago. in which he examines how long and how much work does it take to become an expert in something. And his theory was, by the time he got done researching, it takes 10,000 hours of doing something before you are world class at it. And so, all right, if that's true, give or take a couple thousand hours, how much content would you have to create to be really, really good at it? An F load, 10,000 hours, right?
And even more for us, I think. So.
you're just starting so far back. And so my long rambling answer longer for you. My first piece of advice is there are so many platforms and outlets now that didn't exist 10 years ago. Create content. Where could your audience be? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, podcasts. Like, you don't have to have a radio station or a TV station to create content anymore. You just have to have the internet. So just go create content and get used to it. And then the other big piece of advice that I put in this LinkedIn article that it's my first ever LinkedIn post yesterday. So
congratulations.
Woo!
Yeah,
Awesome.
Check it out.
Is I think people make the mistake sometimes of trying to, like, I'm going to jump in, I'm going to be a sports media person. I'm going to talk about everything. I'm going to talk about LeBron. I'm going to talk about the NFL. I'm going to talk about the Vikings. And they're literally like trying to cover 15 different things. And instead of doing what we literally just did, which is just talk about the Vikings. If you can own one thing, ideally something that's popular and consumed a lot, you have a better chance of breaking through if you can dominate that one thing, get your foot in the door. Like Matthew Berry chose fantasy football. Matthew Berry didn't say, I'm gonna talk a little of this, little of this. He said, I'm just gonna own fantasy football, and that's gonna be my thing. And you see, all over the place in the blogosphere, like Dane Moore has the Dane Moore NBA show, and he just talks Timberwolves. God help Dane Moore having to talk Timberwolves every day, but like he talks Timberwolves every single day, and he is now he's been full-time as a media guy, and he's had his own platforms and stuff too. So niche to start with, create content every single day, and then study the people that you admire in media. If there's a writer that you think is awesome, if there's a talk show host you think is awesome, don't just listen and read to be entertained. What are they actually doing to be great at what they do? Like what topics are they picking? How are they setting up their guest interviews? What's their energy like? How are they starting? How are they finishing? How long do they go on certain topics? Like, literally sit and take notes on people that you love so that you can steal from them and then apply it to your own personality. I think right now Pat McAfee and his crew are doing a ridiculously cool job in the news space. I mean, I've never been a huge consumer of Barstool Sports in terms of like my own entertainment value, but Barstool Sports is giving everyone the absolute template on how you create a media company right now by just being relevant, build brands and be relevant on multiple platforms, and obviously like do it at the highest possible level. But there's a lot of great examples out there in the digital media space that I think if you just go to school on them, it's not going to happen overnight, but you can definitely apply the principles and you can win. It's so much more fragmented now than it was 10 or 15 years ago. Think about this, like with music radio, for instance, or sports radio. 20 years ago, if you wanted to listen to sports talk, well, podcast didn't exist. Social media didn't exist. You could watch TV or you could listen to the local sports station, right? Or music. Like if you want to listen to country music in the late 90s, like you could put a cassette or a CD in your car, or you could listen to K102 in the Twin Cities, right? And those are your options. And now it's like you can watch TikTok, you can watch Instagram, you can listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple. Like it's just ridiculous how fragmented everything is. And so it's even more important to have a great brand, to be entertaining, and to be niche so that you can get your foot in the door with people and then go from there. So that was a really long ansser, and I hope that was helpful.
No, it's
Inspiring.
very insightful.
I'm going to create so much content tonight. I got this. I have, what did you say, 10,000? I got 9,900 hours to go.
Perfect. We'll get you our login info for all of our social accounts off Mike Star.
Okay.
All right.
I do need to learn those.
We know you're sensitive on time, so we have one last question for you. It should be fairly quick, hopefully. It is when a group like the Butthole reaches out to you. Like, what was your first, when you hear the name, we're reaching out to have you come on. What's your initial thoughts?
I love the name.
Yeah.
I love the name.
Thanks.
There we go.
It stands out. It stands out. Yeah. I think anyone with the name Butthole knows how to party. So I figure if these guys know how to party, then I'm in.
Let's do
No, I'm
this.
sad we didn't have ourselves.
Yeah.
Now we're just
You're
drinking
gonna have to
water
check us
here.
out on the draft. It'll be a totally different group.
Yeah.
Then.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for
Very
your time, Phil.
informative.
Yeah, dudes. Yeah, and let's do it once the Vikings draft 3 cornerbacks with their first 3 picks. Maybe we'll do it again.
Yes.
But hey, it's still gonna be a cheap group back there, cornerback.
They're all under team control for 4 to 5 years. It's great.
Forever.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you
Good luck,
so
kid.
much.
Yep. Thank you, Phil.
All right.
See you guys.
Have a
Take
good
her
night.
easy. And that was Phil Mackey with the butthole.
Oh, yeah. From SkorNorth.com, Hubbard Radio. He's the digital content creator. Are you doing something here?
Pretty cool guy.
No, we're about to finish up, but
Oh, perfect.
Star got nervous, didn't want to give his outro.
Yeah, I was waiting until he left. Go jerk off.
Bye. Check out our website, www.officialbutthole.com.
It's
me, you dick.
We're
on all socials.
Stop
at
it.
Official
It's a
Butthole.
butthole.
Please leave us a rating and review. On
Someone's
Apple
talking.
Music. And we'll see you
See you
next time.
next time.
Are you gonna get mouth control of that?
Well, that was